So today we're going to look at these clarifications. I'm also going to run this clip from Mel Gibson because it's got me thinking again about Quo Primum. Quo Primum was published in 1570 about the Mass. And Quo Primum says that the Missal of Pius V, which is the Tridentine Missal, which is the Mass that we attend at the traditional Latin Mass, it holds, the language is in perpetuity.
Geez, I remember back in the 70s, old priests, good priests, who were bullied and persecuted by their bishops. There was a rash of it back then also, and it was because they wanted to maintain what it was that they were ordained to do. They didn't want to go along with the new liturgy and the reforms of Vatican II, and so that they were really heavily leaned on. It was never abrogated, the old Mass, never, and it still hasn't been. You can't. It's protected by Quo Primum. And how are we supposed to know the good guys from the bad guys? Well, we were given a standard by which to judge them. By their fruits, you'll know them. And look, I'm a pretty sinful guy. I mean, I'm as venal as the next guy.
Whatever you think about Mel Gibson, I like him. He's 100% on point here. Well, can the Latin Mass and the Roman Rite be abrogated? You just heard Mel Gibson say it couldn't. He talks about Quo Primum. But Benedict XVI said that it was not abrogated. And yet here's Francis saying it can be. Which one is it? Which one is it? And if we can just ignore Benedict, as Francis is doing, why can't we just ignore Francis? Let me read to you a section from Quo Primum. Quo Primum, as I stated in the intro, is from Pope St. Pius V. It was issued in 1570. It's short. You can read it in 2 minutes. It's on the Vatican website. But here is the third to last paragraph by Pius V. And I know some traditionalists say, well, Taylor, I don't know if you can really appeal to Quo Primum. Even my good friend Ryan Grant's like, I don't know if we should be making arguments on Quo Primum. I'm just saying, I think it's binding in perpetuity. And even if it's not, how can a future vicar of Christ go 180 degrees against a sainted pope like St. Pius V? Like, how is that even prudent? How is that even wise? How is that even wholesome? Here's what Pius V says, and it's pretty powerful language. Quote, furthermore, by these presents, this law, in virtue of our apostolic authority, we grant and concede in perpetuity that the chanting or reading of the Mass in any church whatsoever, this missal is hereafter to be followed absolutely without any scruple of conscience or fear of incurring any penalty, judgment, or censure, and may freely and lawfully be used. Now, I can already hear the Jesuits saying, yeah, but Taylor, they had to add new feast days and new saints. Yes, of course. Pius V knew there were going to be new feast days and new saints. As I mentioned, I think in Infiltration, he himself added the feast after the Battle of Lepanto, the Feast of Our Lady of Victory, which becomes the Feast of Our Lady of the Rosary. So yes, obviously there can be new feasts, there can be new saints added to the Missal. But the Missal, meaning, what you see, there's a ninefold Kyrie in the text of the Gloria, and the place where the collect goes, and the place where the epistle goes, and the gradual, and the gospel, and the Nicene Creed, and the offertory. All that stuff in the Missal is to be followed absolutely. It says, hereafter to be followed absolutely. And he declares it by his apostolic authority in perpetuity. This is pretty heavy language. To come along in the 1960s and be like, let's just throw away the whole Missal. Let's write it over. I know it had a ninefold Kyrie. Let's do a sixfold Kyrie. I know it had a specific offertory. Let's create a different offertory. I know there was the Roman canon, which was hallowed by centuries over a millennium. Hey, let's just write something on the back of a napkin. Pius V goes on to say, nor are superiors, administrators, canons, chaplains, and other secular priests or religious of whatsoever title designated obliged to celebrate the Mass otherwise than enjoined by us. We likewise declare and ordain that no one whosoever is forced or coerced to alter this missal, and that this present document cannot be revoked or modified, but remains always valid and retain its full force. This is big language. He's saying you can't alter the missal. This document cannot be revoked or modified. It remains always valid and retain its full force. This is quo primum. This is why Mel Gibson says it's protected by quo primum. It's a strong argument. Does it hold? Let's talk about it. Let's discuss it. I think maybe trads have abandoned that argument too quickly. Maybe we need to circle back and investigate it. Maybe Mel Gibson is correct.